Alright guys, Yowie Chaser. We're going to Bocoble. So there's 3 sightings. There's 2 small ones and there's a larger sighting that I've already recorded, but I'll play the video again. But I was just looking on the maps here trying to work out what's so interesting about this place. So I don't know, the only good thing is this dam. So in a drought I suppose this would be a good area. It'd be good to hear if the people that have had sightings from here was it when the drought was on. Anyway, and there's a place down here called Candos. Where's Candos here? I've had some sightings from around in here as well. And then yeah. So one of them that I had was in a Subway. Subway food shop. I can't remember how the story went. But anyway, there was this young girl in there. She was so tiny. I've told the story before. And I just got talking to her. And then she said she was from Candos. And she used to go hunting pigs. And I can't remember what she told me. Something about she had trackers on a dog. And a dog had got attacked probably by a pig. It was pretty busted up. But then when she come back to her car was running. It had an alarm. And the doors were open and the car was running. I think that's how the story went. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's just get on with this story. All right, so the first story is I have a property near Bocoble that backs onto Hundy's Creek. Plenty of yowie activity last winter. They drove me off my property. It got pretty bad. Who would be running around at night in bare feet in the middle of winter? In the middle of nowhere in the thick scrub. Was getting rocks thrown at the cabin, trees shaking, the deck and the awning knocking was relentless, day and night, and this feeling in the air that something didn't want me there. Alright, so that's that one. Thanks for that. So, yeah, I wonder if is there deer down there, guys? I don't know. It's weird how they just choose certain houses to like you hear this in America, there'll be one house on, in the middle of nowhere, and they just choose to pick on that one house. There's got to be a reason for it. Yeah, I don't know. All right, we'll get on to the second one. Bloody good dam. Oh, here's the dam. You probably wouldn't have seen it because I'm going to play a YouTube channel. I had to make the screen smaller. But there's that dam. All right, let's get on to the second story. So the second one it's only a short one, this one. Bocoble is 20 k's from Mudgee, where I live. My bro-in-law used to own a property out there. Very weird things out there. My sister hated being out there alone at night. And then they just put, they had big dogs to keep them safe. So, yeah, that's not very much of a story, but obviously it's another one, so there's something going on. Yeah, while I'm reading it, I just read this. Look, Windermere, temporary close. Let's see what that is about. Temporary close. I wonder why. Anyway, if anyone's from out that way, guys, we'll get on to this one. I've got to play a video. I'm just going to play the video, guys. So, that'll be the third one. All right. Let's play the video. Hopefully this works.
Okay. I have a couple of strange things that happened at my property about 15 years ago. Here we go. We had purchased a small 23-acre bush property in a town named Bocoble in New South Wales, Australia. These small blocks of land are called the back blocks and are quite rugged and rocky, not really fit for conventional farming. Ours is hilly and covered in trees with low scrub. I wanted a block of land for somewhere to get away, for everything, for peace and quiet, and not for farming. There is a small 6x9 meter cabin made where we can sleep at night. It's got a good cement floor and a fireplace. And I just gotta scroll up a bit. Whoops, too much. The area is fairly remote, quite when we first purchased the block. There was a house next door, which at the time was empty, and it looked a little run down. There was also a small cabin on the other side of our block, which also looking a little run down and rarely used. This suited me fine, as I liked the place and liked the peace and quiet. Sorry. The first couple of times I stayed up at the block, I explored the surrounding areas and found that there were some people living nearby, but they were far enough away that I couldn't see them or even hear them. Anyway, let's get on to the strange things that happened to me. The first strange thing I had been hunting with a bow and arrow for rabbits on the block of land that backs onto the end of my property. Having no... Oh, God, I've lost where I was up to. Hang on. Having no luck, I decided to call it quits and head back to the cabin. So I crossed back over the fence and began to walk along the dirt track which follows the hillside along my property. Just where the track goes over a small rise and then takes a turn into a gully, I heard 4 loud wood knocks. At first I thought it could be someone cutting wood with an axe, but it didn't sound the same. It sounded more like somebody hitting a tree with a piece of wood. I stood there waiting for more knocks so I could pinpoint where the noise came from, but nothing happened, so I started walking again. Travelling about 50 metres towards the gully, there was more knocks. They were definitely not an axe, and they were definitely coming from the top of the hill. Between me and the cabin, I stood there contemplating what to do next. It was getting darker, and as I looked towards the hill, I heard some more knocks. Thought to myself, none of the neighbours are around, so who or what is knocking on the trees? With visibility getting lower, I decided not to go that direction. I backtracked and headed to the neighbour's property. It has a track that follows the next hillside and comes out behind the old house, and from there I can cut across to my place and hopefully be on the other side of whatever is making the knocks. The sun had already set, so I needed to get back to the cabin before it got too dark. I had no idea who or what was making those knocks, and I didn't want to find out in the dark, especially in low light. So I walked quiet as I could without making too much noise. Hang on. Sorry, guys. I was making the knocks and I didn't want to find out in the dark, especially in low light. As I walked as quick as I could without making too much noise, the track is steep and covered in small rocks, so it can get slippery. So I was being careful as well as quiet. My idea was to take the track up and around behind the neighbour's house and sneak over to the area where I heard the wood knocks. By the time I reached the top of that hill, it was almost dark and very hard to see anything, so I stood still for a moment, scanning the trees for a movement. Every dark tree trunk looked suspicious. Was that something? Did they move? Is something hiding behind those trees? It was impossible to make out enough details to know in the low light. Everyone was dark grey to black. I waited, then slowly walked across the neighbour's yard into mine. This is the area where it sounded like the knocking came from. I stopped near some trees and used them as cover while searching for any movement. I saw nothing, which was good in one way, but I couldn't find out what made the knocking. I waited a few more minutes and then proceeded towards my cabin, which was about 100 metres away. Once back in the cabin, I checked that nobody had been in it, so I could relax. I had no more knocks or anything unusual for the rest of the weekend. Yeah, wow, that's crazy, man. All right, we'll get on to another thing. So the second strange thing, it was around the same time in the afternoon. The sun was already set, and I was making my way back to the same dirt track, which leads back to the cabin. This time, I was hunting with my son-in-law. We didn't get any rabbits, so we decided to take the track back through the neighbour's property, hoping to see a rabbit on the way. The track follows a small valley before it heads up the steep hillside. And as we travelled through it, we heard something to our left. It sounded like something stepping on small twigs and cracking them. We both stood still and looked back towards where the sound came from, but I couldn't see anything. We began to walk on, and we heard it again. Something was walking in the same direction as us. It was crunching the leaves and twigs on the ground as it stepped. We stopped, and then it would stop. We looked back and still could see nothing. At first I thought it might have been a kangaroo or a wombat, but they don't like people and always run off. I slowly walked towards the area the noise came from and crouched down. An uneasy feeling came over me, so I knocked an arrow onto the bow just in case and scanned the area, looking for movement. Whatever this was not afraid to follow us, but smart to stay out of out of sight. I couldn't see anything. We began walking again, and it wasn't long, and we heard more footsteps and movement. I waited a few moments, but again, nothing visible. Strange animals usually don't like people, so they run away. Whatever this was stayed around, which creeped me out. We decided to go back to the cabin before it got dark. Once we started up the hill, the noises stopped and nothing else happened for the rest of that stay. Yeah, it sounds like something's going on. Something's following you, man. That's just normal, eh? All right, we'll get on to the next time. So the third thing, this was really scary. I was staying at the cabin with my son. It was a really cold night, so we set up our camp beds in front of the fire to stay warm. It wasn't long before we both fell asleep. My son and I were suddenly woken up by two loud bangs on the side of the cabin. I quickly sat up and looked at my son. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He said, "Yes." We both sat up in our beds and listened and staying dead quiet. Then we could hear something moving on the pile of bricks outside. We could hear them crunching together as if something was standing on them. I didn't want to go outside just in case something or somebody attacked us. We both just listened until we eventually fell back asleep. The next morning I went outside to look around, and I asked my son to listen as I stepped on the pile of bricks to recreate the sound we heard during the night. As I stood on them, he said that's exactly what it sounded like. As I stood on the bricks, I turned to the cabin window and I could see my son through the window in his bed. I called him and said, "This is creepy. Someone or something was standing on these bricks to look in at us." I also tried hitting the side of the shed with a stick and then my hand to recreate that sound as well, and the noise was like my hand hitting it. So something hit that side of that shed with their hand, then stood on a pile of bricks to look at us inside. Crazy. I wish I got up to check out what was outside, but at the time I was afraid if I went outside, I'd have to unlock the doors, and who knows what's out there. And once the doors are unlocked, they could get in, or if I ventured outside, they could have jumped me. I didn't want to put my son in danger. The thought that somebody or some people who were walking around that late at night in the freezing cold, banging on the shed walls and peering in the windows would be ludicrous, as they would have no idea what sort of person could be inside the shed with weapons. If it was people or a person, they must be crazy, so maybe it was a good idea not to have gone outside. I personally don't think it was a person, especially after the next strange thing. Yeah, I don't think it was, man. There's been like heaps of that sort of stuff where they've been looking in windows. So yeah, that's full on. All right, we'll get on the next one. All right, so the last strange thing, I had travelled up to our property to cut up a load of firewood to take home. This was to be just a day trip. I spent a few hours cutting wood from some fallen trees and loaded the pickup truck. On the way out, I stopped at the cabin to lock it up before I left. I then walked down to the small dam to see how much water was in it and headed back towards the truck. As I approached the truck, I could see 3 footprints. The footprints were coming from the long grass and heading up the embankment towards my cabin. The stride was quite long, as if it was running. I could see that they'd used their toes to dig into the ground for grip. One of the 3 footprints was very detailed, as the ground was damp. The other 2 were only partial. This was really strange. These were not very old prints. It freaks me out wondering if the animal that made these could have been there while I was getting the firewood. Or did it run up from the dam when I walked down that way? These footprints looked almost like humans' footprint, only curved, and the toes had toenails like an animal. I wasn't sure what to do. I needed to get back home that day because of my job. I had no way of making a cast of the prints. I decided to cover them over with sheets of tin to protect them. I returned to the property a few weeks later and brought some plaster to make an impression of the prints. The 2 partial prints were useless as they didn't show up. As well, unfortunately, the breast print had dried out and had lost a lot of its detail. When it was wet, it had heaps of detail, toenail marks, even the wrinkles of the foot. But nevertheless, I did get a cast which shows the 5 toes and the full foot. The foot is 8 inches long, 4 inches wide, and resembles a human print, although it is more curved than a human foot. It is a human footprint, then the person would not be able to wear normal shoes, and I don't know how somebody could have the toenails that were more pointed like an animal. The stride was from a 2-footed animal, as there was no other print. There was no other print showing otherwise. In Australia, the native people say that there are 2 kinds of yowie, the large one and the smaller one. This may be the smaller type. They are apparently 4 foot tall and can be quite destructive. I believe these smaller yowies are called the Jundiji by the native Australians. This would also explain why it used the bricks to look in the window. Anyway, hope you like the stories. I wish I had more exciting ones. Kind regards, Mark. Awesome, brother. Thanks, mate. Now, he's still got some more. He told me some other stuff. We'll do them another day. Those 4-foot ones, guys, they've been getting. Does anyone see anything while we've been sitting here? I'll tell you what, my arm's nearly gone to sleep. I don't know if you can.
All right, all that from that one little town. 3 sightings, guys. So if anyone's from here, Bocoble, go to Yowie Chaser Facebook page and tell me any that you've heard or seen. All right, guys, I'll just go back to one of these other videos. All right, so this is the Cataract Campbelltown Yowie sighting. That was the last one I just did. Just want to go read this here in case you don't read the So about 30 years ago, I walked down a steep track towards the George River, the bush, and the boulders. I was hoping to find a swimming hole in the gorge that I was told about. I didn't get to the river though because suddenly I was overcome with intense terror. I turned and got out of there as quickly as I could and never been back. I don't remember exactly, but close to Campbell, possibly Kentland area, alright? So I want to show you something. So yeah, this could be the spot. I actually walked down to it. Let's have a look. I don't know if I showed on that, but I was talking to some other people on the way down, and they was saying that yeah, so that's heading down towards Holsworthy. Up here, they said that there's another good waterhole up here is probably the one you've probably been told about. But yeah, I made a video on this place. Yeah, there was all these shells on the sand, like someone had been eating all these shells. It was like no human would have went down. You know those little seashells? You see them everywhere. I don't know what they're called. But yeah, so that's interesting. So yeah, probably there was some yowies in the area. Maybe a family, and they didn't want you there. They seem to be able to do weird stuff. Alright, that one's been going 20 minutes. That's gone way too long. Alright, we're going to end this. Just remember, guys, if you've had any Yowie sightings, go to Yowie Chaser Facebook page and report your sighting there. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. See you.